Hello, this is my story, the story of Mateo Vargas. Once I had everything. Then I lost it all, and finally, I rose from the ashes. Maybe you've tasted betrayal or burned with the desire for justice. What I experienced was the very essence of those feelings. My childhood unfolded in the lush, endless fields of Central America. The morning sun would hit the fields, and birdsong would echo through the air. My father, Don Armando, had built Vargas Chemicals stitch by stitch, with his own sweat and toil. For us, the company wasn't just a business. It was a promise, a vow we made to the land and our people. When I'd sit with my father in his old, simple office and talk about the future, my heart would swell with both excitement and the weight of this immense legacy. Sustainability projects, biopesticides, water purification technologies. My vision aligned with his. The Vargas name would always be synonymous with integrity. I had sworn to it. But in the shadow of those fields, a dark ambition was festering. My uncle, Ricardo. He had always lived in my father's shadow, and it gnawed at him from the inside. I'd run into him at board meetings. He'd talk about growing the company with more aggressive, more profitable methods. Chemicals that harm the environment, illegal raw materials. My uncle, Ricardo. He was a man who believed the ends justified the means. The sting of being in my father's shadow had driven him to relentless ambition. Behind that fake smile of his, there was a cold calculation. He completely disregarded my father's ethical values, not hesitating to use the Vargas name for his own dirty schemes. For me, he wasn't just an adversary. He was a traitor who stained my father's pure legacy. He always told me,
"These romantic dreams of yours will be the death of you one day, Mateo. The world is changing. Either you play by its rules, or your rivals will crush you and move right over you."
I later learned that while he was mocking me, he was secretly meeting with a man named Lázaro Mendez, a man with no shred of conscience in his eyes. Lázaro was a cold, dangerous figure who handled Ricardo's dirty work.
"Mateo needs to be removed, Lázaro. Gone for good."
Those words still echo in my ears. While I was celebrating my sustainability project with my father's work team, a trap was being set for me. On the very day that project was introduced at that warehouse, leaving my computer unlocked during a routine inspection was the biggest mistake of my life. That's when Ricardo's men infiltrated. Using my name, they organized illegal drug shipments and even framed me for a murder. One day, when the police raided the company, I was in shock. I still remember Detective Eleanor Flores's suspicious gaze. The warehouse was in chaos, sirens blaring, officers rushing everywhere. She approached me, her face showing neither pity nor understanding, just cold professionalism. My stomach clenched when I saw the handcuffs in her hand. I looked into her eyes, desperately trying to find an explanation, but my throat was tight. She, meanwhile, flipped through the pages of a file in her hand and spoke with all seriousness, as if in a play.
"Mateo Vargas, you're under arrest on charges of murder, drug trafficking, and finally, operating an organized crime syndicate. The evidence is clear and convincing. We're taking you to Central Precinct. You can explain everything there."
The evidence was so flawlessly fabricated that I couldn't utter a single word. The trap was so intricately set that the more I struggled, the deeper I sank. Those suspicious glances in their eyes felt like the end of my life. I was arrested. My reputation was shattered. My family couldn't believe it and turned their backs on me. My father, He was my biggest supporter, my greatest source of strength. He couldn't bear this pain, and I received news of his passing while I was in prison. Words got stuck in my throat. My father's last look on the day the police raided the company is still vivid in my mind. My father was gone. Not my fault, but because of me. My prison cell became my tomb. I had lost everything. My name, my family, my future. My father's legacy was being annihilated at the hands of a monster like Ricardo. I couldn't sleep for nights. But in that darkness, a fire ignited within me. One day I would return, and I would never be the same again. This vengeance would be my rebirth. Prison. It became not a tomb for me, but a university. My body was incarcerated, but my mind was free. The first few days passed in despair and rage. Then I made a decision. I'd devour knowledge to take down Ricardo and people like him. The dusty shelves in the old prison library became my greatest teachers. Law books, financial analyses, cybersecurity protocols. I absorbed every bit of information like a sponge. One day I found a coded note tucked inside an old book. It simply read, El Maestro.
True power is in the mind. Knowledge is the sword. Patience is the shield. And revenge is a dish best served cold.
Maestro. I didn't know who he was. Was he a legend, a phantom, or a wise mind imprisoned just like mine? But his words illuminated my path. Fists could only take you so far in this world. True power was hidden in the mind. Years later, when I was released from prison, there was nothing left of the old Mateo. Armed with the knowledge I had amassed, I stepped into the clandestine and crime-ridden real world outside. Instead of leading an ordinary life, I dedicated myself to further developing and learning to execute my revenge plan. 4 days I analyzed international corporate data on computer screens. I delved into the dark labyrinth of the international business world for a long time. I built a new network for myself, rapidly rising in the financial markets. I investigated all of Ricardo's past financial movements, his family connections, his illegal networks, and his weaknesses. Every new fragment of information became a piece of my revenge plan. While the outside world was full of chaos and betrayal, my inner world had transformed into a strategy laboratory. And I knew that when I returned, no one would recognize me. I was still Mateo Vargas, but not the naive kid you once knew. Without drawing Ricardo's attention, I began to approach him. I acquired his rival companies, making strategic covert investments in his new, controversial, and unsustainable projects. I was researching his financial weak points. My new mind was my new weapon. I was ready to beat him at his own game. It was during this period, at an international sustainability summit, that I met Sofia Reyes, Ricardo's personal assistant. Of course, she didn't know who I really was. For a while, we didn't talk much about business, but I always saw a discomfort, an unease in her eyes. I realized she was also affected by Ricardo's dirty dealings. It was as if she wanted to put an end to it all, but didn't know how. And one day, I told her the whole truth. I asked her for help.
Mateo, I don't know how to do this, and I'm terrified. Ricardo is very powerful and dangerous.
Power isn't just in position, Sophia. Sometimes getting the right information to the right person is more powerful than anything. I won't let my father Don Armando's legacy be tainted. Please, help me.
I can help you, Matteo, but I might pay for this with my life.
I tried to persuade Sophia for a while. She hesitated for a long time, but then that unease slowly gave way to determination. From that day on, we made a plan. Sophia began secretly leaking critical information to me. The company's darkest secrets, Ricardo's illegal agreements, forged reports. Slowly, they all fell into my hands. She was an inside eye, an ear for me. Sophia's courage, her belief in me, became one of the most important connections in this complex network. Meanwhile, my rise in the business and financial markets finally made Ricardo notice me. He knew I would pose a threat to him. And of course, he wasn't idle either. He sent Lazaro Mendez after me to completely eliminate me a second time. Explosives planted in my car, poisoning traps, sniper shots from afar. Each time, I narrowly escaped. Thanks to what Maestro taught me, I was one step ahead. Every failed assassination attempt showed just how desperate Ricardo had become, and this only fueled my desire for revenge even more. I was itching to relegate him to the dusty pages of history. I wasn't alone in my quest for justice. My path crossed with Detective Elena Flores again. Though she was suspicious of me at first, the evidence I presented to her, the documents from Sophia, Lazaro's failed attempts, made her see Ricardo's true colors. Elena began to move through legal channels to bring Ricardo down.
These documents are incredible, Matteo, but I need to build a very strong investigation to put Ricardo behind bars. More documents and evidence could mean the end for him.
When she said that, I felt the determination in her voice. Elena became my sword of justice on the outside, and Padre Esteban, the wise priest I'd known since childhood. When I visited him, he noticed the change in my face, but he also saw the goodness still in my soul. He told me that Ricardo's inner wound stemmed from being overshadowed by my father, but that it never justified his actions. Padre's wise words ensured I didn't lose my humanity on my path of vengeance. He whispered to me that justice wasn't just about a reckoning, but also about purification. I was ready. My plan, which I called the Digital Legacy Collapse, went into action. I targeted Ricardo's fake sustainability network. I infiltrated the digital infrastructure of the green projects he used to launder profits from illegal mining. I started with small targeted leaks. I would expose the truth behind Ricardo's Vargas Global Sustainable Solutions and his fraudulent environmental projects. I hacked into his virtual servers, acquiring classified offshore account data and digital traces of his multi-million-dollar bribery agreements with those illegal mining companies. Then I gradually leaked this evidence onto the internet through an anonymous blog called Vargas Truth and various international NGO forums. These leaks, which began as whispers, quickly exploded in the international media. In the public eye, his green mask was shattered, and everyone could see the difference between my father's true vision and his deceit. This would be his end. And then, that day arrived, the annual board meeting of Vargas Chemicals. Ricardo was at the podium, narrating his latest project with a false air of triumph. As everyone listened to him, I walked through the door. My face carried the pain and strategy of years, the shock that appeared in Ricardo's eyes. At that very moment, I pulled a device from my pocket and pressed a button. On the massive screen in the conference room, instead of the fabricated data from Ricardo's Sustainability 2.0 project, a chronology began to flow. Black money transfers from Vargas Global's offshore accounts, illegal mining permits, and satellite images supporting Ricardo's secret meetings with international crime organizations via private jet. Then, an audio recording played. Ricardo's assassination order to Lazaro concerning me, heard in his own voice. He panicked. He denied everything. That false charisma on his face instantly shattered. Seeing Ricardo's mask fall was a moment I had waited years for. I looked into his eyes, calm and determined. In that instant, I felt everyone in the room hold their breath. Ricardo's voice rose, trembling.
This is a lie, a conspiracy. Mateo, how are you alive?
I'm right here. Now it's time for you to pay for what you put me and my father through. You can't deny anything anymore.
Your father, he always put you first, listened to your ideas. He always overlooked my projects, my efforts. I was never good enough in his eyes. I was always at second plan. And now you're just like him.
Justice always finds its way, Ricardo. And you stained my father's name. You polluted his legacy. My father, overlooking you, didn't give you the right to take his life and inflict this pain on me.
Legacy? You were nothing. You were meant to be crushed in my shadow. You were always going to be the favored heir. That company was mine by right. I built this empire myself. I did everything.
No, Ricardo. You were just a fake, despicable man. Now you'll get the real legacy you deserve. The room fell silent. Just then, Detective Elena Flores and the police entered. Ricardo's empire crumbled before my eyes. Lazaro was also apprehended. Justice had been served. Ricardo went to prison. The media tore him apart. That moment was the climax of my revenge, but at the same time, I felt a sense of peace within me. This wasn't just my revenge. This was the rebirth of my father's legacy. Now I was at the helm of Vargas Chemicals, with its new name and vision. There was nothing left of my old naivety. My father's ethical values have always been my guiding light. I restored our company to its old, clean days. I replanted the lands and strengthened our relationships with our people. I walked through the fields with Padre Esteban. He told me, once seeds are planted, if watered with patience and in the right way, even the most barren lands will turn green again. And I made these lands green again. A legacy isn't just about money or land. A legacy is about the values we leave behind. My story, this is it. The story of rebirth.